Hello and welcome back to the Behind the Woodshed Sportscast. My name is Alex, your famous host, and tonight I wanted to dive into the NFC North. What makes the NFC North the best division in football, in my opinion, which is the right opinion. You've got a championship caliber team in Green Bay every single season, especially since... Well, you have Rodgers, right? You have Aaron Rodgers. You have the ability with him to go the distance every single year, which Packer fans have been kind of spoiled by, with Green Bay having Brett Favre. Now they got Aaron Rodgers. But what's that next step? Where does Green Bay go after Aaron Rodgers? What kind of player are they going to look for? Are they going to look for in the draft now? And then do a similar situation to what happened with the Favre exit, which I think people are over, right? I mean, it's been, 2007 is when it ended. So hopefully people are over that. Is that what's going to happen again this year? Are they looking for someone in the draft? I haven't read anything in any draft boards or any posts like that that states that they might. But, they don't tell me. So everything's messed up with this COVID-19 stuff. So after you have Green Bay, you've got Detroit. What does Detroit bring to the table other than absolutely nothing year in and year out? Which is kind of disappointing because every time I've ever spoken with a Detroit Lions fan, they're very big fans, but they kind of go in knowing that, hey, look, this team isn't going to do much, and they almost expect to lose before they go in. And I actually talked to someone that's a friend of mine who's from the Michigan area, and she said that basically they watch them because it's there. They don't expect a lot, They are anticipating a loss before they even get onto the field, which, as a fan base, is pretty disheartening. And it's kind of like a Cleveland situation, but we'll go into them in a different episode. Do you even want to go see this team? Are you going because the tickets are cheap, or are you going because you're an actual fan of the team? And from what I'm given to understand, the Lions have a lot of those faithful fans that dig in and, they made it through an 0-16 season. So if they can go through that, they can go through a lot. Just going to dig into those two teams right now and kind of dive into what they have between them. And my next episode on Monday, I'm going to do a Monday, Wednesday, Friday format for my little program here. And so on Monday, I'm going to dive into the Vikings as well as the Bears. So let's dig right in here, and I spent a little bit of time prepping this morning. The Lions. So going back to 2000, the Lions in those 20 seasons only have 4 winning records, 3 playoff appearances, and all 3 of those were wild card exits. They were out in that first round, which, once again, as a fan base, has to be tough to get to, especially when you finally get there and you're like, yes, and then you're out in the first round. As a Vikings fan, I know exactly what it's like to get far and also get nowhere at the same time. The biggest disadvantage that the Lions have is they have 9 coaching changes since 2000. There's no way you're going to have a successful program if you're changing coaches that frequently. And what that shows to me as a casual outsider is that leadership. Is there leadership? If you have some sort of great leadership in place, there's no way that you're changing coaches every 2 seasons on average. There's no way that you're going to succeed if you can't have the continuity of a head coach. Coordinators might change. Obviously, those position coaches can change with little to no impact, but you got to have the head coach stability, and everyone's going to go to Belichick, and rightfully so, they should. But a lot of people can start looking at the Ravens. They've got a great head coach there in Harbaugh that's been there for a while, and they were able to see some benefits of having the same kind of thinking in every single avenue that they take. So, not saying that a Belichick or Harbaugh is going to come around to Detroit. And lately, all you've been hearing is negative with Matt Patricia. You've got players that left and it said, "Oh my God, it's the best thing I've ever done." Hated playing for this guy. And one of the players actually came out and said, "I was so elated that they cut me." He did a little dance for joy, which it's hard. You have you have a team like the Lions who, for a while, couldn't get out of their own way in the draft. I mean, they would just go for wide receiver after wide receiver after wide receiver until they finally hit a Calvin Johnson. But by that point, the damage was done. I mean, in the first round, they went receiver, I think, 6 years in a row, which, I mean, if you have a quarterback to throw to him at that time, it's not that bad of a deal. But none of these guys are sticking around. And kind of piggybacking on the Calvin Johnson is he's one of those players that was so good at his position. You had a game plan for that guy, right? You know, your good quarterback, your Richard Shermans, your Darrelle Revises of the world, they're playing over on that side of the field. And so now you can focus on the underneath. You can focus on the below as opposed to a Calvin Johnson where you got the top getting taken off the defense whenever they wanted, basically. You had a transcendent player like that who might not end up in the Hall of Fame, but he quit because he didn't have a winning culture around him. And then you go back to when I was younger, you had Barry Sanders, and he did the same thing. Stepped out of it, and it wasn't a position where they were able to put winning as a forefront decision. It was, hey, we're just playing football, and that's basically it. When you hear about teams going all in for a Super Bowl run, how often do you hear the usual suspects? You got Rams going all in. You got Packers going in. You've got myriad teams that are willing to put draft capital at stake in order to get to that next step. I have never once in my years, like I'm doing this forever, in the amount of time that I've been watching football, I've never heard of the Lions being a team that everyone's like, oh, the Lions are all in it this year. They're my sleeper pick. The Lions aren't even the Lions' sleeper pick to get to the playoffs. They are in their own way on a consistent and alarming basis. Through my research, I found to mention, 2 Hall of Fame players from the Lions, and biggest one is Barry Sanders and Dick LeBeau, went in as a coach, but they don't seem to have the drafting thing down. Not that they've ever asked me, but I don't know what the deal is on that. Got to go to my notes. I had a hot take here. Hold on. Is the ownership the problem? Is this ownership group, the one person, Mrs. Ford, is their leadership from there to the point where they feel comfortable maybe going in and actually making these requests for some of those bigger trades? And maybe it's just that. Maybe they don't feel comfortable going to this individual and saying, look, this is what we're going to do. This is what we need. Or maybe they're just detached and they don't have an answer for that, which you have a team, right? There's only 32 of these in the league, in the world, as it stands right now. And you have these world-class athletes, and you have to wonder what's going on that they can't necessarily get out of their own way long enough to make a playoff run with any sort of depth. I mean, once again, going back to 2000, they have 4 winning seasons and only 3 playoff appearances, which that's a lot of drought. That is very, very, very disappointing as a fan base. Their most recent record, 3-12-1. The year before that, 6-10. That's got to be difficult going in and expecting that. And once again, being a Minnesota fan myself, I'm used to that. I'm used to that. But then every once in a while, we kind of get our head out of where, and we've got, we went in with a Favre, right? And I'm not going to go too far into it because I'm going to go into that on Monday. But we've been on the precipice of where we wanted to be, and we kind of got in our own way there. So I know what that's like. The Lions are just as likely to make those boneheaded moves that you just scratch your head and say, hey, what was that? What are you doing? As those Texans down there that traded away probably the best wide receiver individually in the game. There are better tandems than just him, but as a solo player, I don't know anyone that's better. You hear about Julio, obviously, is a tremendous talent, and the Falcons were right to pick him for sure. But as a single individual player at that position, he's the top of the game. And obviously, like I talked on the last episode, super, super, super bonehead move, not a good idea. So everything that I've read is that the Texans don't want O'Brien around much longer. So hopefully, for the fans' sake and the players' sake, rather, that they get rid of him sooner. Back to the Lions. The franchise doesn't seem to do its players any favors. How many truly great players have left, going back to that Barry Sanders and Kelvin Johnson comparison, have left? And it's just because they don't have that winning culture. They don't have that sort of winning attitude or direction. And I think that is one thing that Matt Patricia is bringing to the team, is that he knows what it's like to have the victories, and he knows what it's like to get to the playoffs. I mean, that's the big thing here, and it shouldn't be that silly that, hey, look, we're just trying to get to the playoffs, but you have a team that, once again, over 20 seasons has 4 winning seasons, and they just don't know what it's like. And how many of those players that have been on that team for that long have that taste in their mouth, and they go in and it's like, hey, I'm on a 5-year deal or whatever, and I'm kind of here, right? I'm just here. And they don't have that fire anymore. They don't have that person that they're really getting behind and saying, like, hey, man, I want to win because of this guy. And I think that's one thing Patricia is trying to bring to the table, but it sounds like he might be doing it the wrong way lately. 0 first-place finishes in these last 20 seasons for Detroit. 4 finishes, however, in the top 2 of the NFC North, which that's no easy feat. Obviously, you got Green Bay. Minnesota's been on as of late. Every once in a while, the Bears seem to do okay. But 4 finishes in the top 2. I mean, 2 out of 4. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. But they've proven that they can have spurts. So 2014, they went 11-5. 2011, they went 10-6. They had a couple 9-7 seasons in there. But that 11-5 season in 2014, I think everyone thought they had something special there, and unfortunately it didn't go anywhere beyond the first round of the divisional playoffs. I think they could have gone a little further. I don't think they're going championship game, but they definitely could have gotten to that next step from the wild card to the division round. Matt Stafford. Great guy. He has done so much for that community around Detroit, as well as for his team. He has literally played with a broken back. I'm not making that up. Had a broken back, carried the team. I think he played most of the season with a broken back. I don't recall if it was this last one or the season prior, but literally had broken bones in his back, still played because he didn't want to leave his guys out there. You can never question that guy's toughness. However, mental toughness is the biggest thing that he's got going for him, because, as we're talking about, he's been playing for the Lions for this long, man. That's a long time. Let's see. Let's go to the internet here. How long has he been playing for them? I apologize for being unprepared on this avenue. Matt Stafford's typo. 2009, so yikes. Long time. 256 career touchdowns for Matt Stafford against only 134 picks. Not the best amount of interceptions there, but, I mean, he's literally carrying that team on his broken back. Is he one of those guys that spends his whole career in one organization? Everyone always tosses out the Patriots, and I'm still in the line from Dan Patrick, but does a team like the Patriots make a play for this guy? Because right now, as we all know, as discussed in the last episode, Brady's in Tampa Bay, if you hadn't heard, if you're living under rocks. They need this guy more than anybody else, and I would love for this to pick up some steam, because I think the Patriots would be willing to do something like that. Having a guy that's proven. I mean, Matt Stafford has career yards up the wazoo, and he's really, really climbing the list. 41,000 passing yards, which he had a season where he had 500 passing yards and a season where he had 2,500 passing yards. But he's been over 4,000 so many times. 2011, he had 5,000 passing yards with 41 touchdowns. And they still didn't do anything. How do you have a guy throw for that many yards, that many touchdowns? 2011, they went 10-6, and you're out in that first round of the playoffs. That has to just be a gut punch every time you turn on the TV. At least that year they were winning 10-6. That's a respectable record across the league. I think almost all teams except the Patriots would be happy with that record, 10-6. But Lions, I mean, that had to have been ecstatic. He is definitely a guy I could see getting traded away. I don't know when his contract is up. Once again, I should have looked that up. I apologize. I don't know if he's in their future. I mean, I've been hearing the talk about, once again referencing Dan Patrick's show, maybe the Lions are going to make a play. I think they have the number 3 overall pick. There's talk of them trading out, but there's also talk of them taking one of these top guys like Tua, where you have a guy that's really highly sought after, and somebody has to take Matt Stafford. Maybe they keep him one more year, let this rookie get into the groove, maybe put him in the starting role at that point. Who knows? Let's see. Going to the notes. I had a neighbor that was from the Detroit area, and he used to be a diehard Lions fan, and he still is. I mean, he hasn't changed that. He's more of a baseball fan now. And he said he switched because he was so sick of going in knowing that they were going to lose that he had to switch to baseball because at least they had a chance to win there because of the ownership group and even just the amount of games that they play. You have a higher chance of getting a W when you're playing 162 games. I don't follow baseball much, as opposed to 16, where you might lose all 16 games like they did in 2008, which is tough. And I believe that was the next year that they picked Matt Stafford. It had to have been. Then they went 2-14. But he has been a rock in that tumultuous sea that they have there. That is my take on the Lions. Feel free to comment below. Go ahead and hit that like button for me. Gives me something to look forward to when I see that little alert go through. Once again, this broadcast is brought to you by Computer Corner. All of your computing needs as well as your cell phone needs, go ahead and stop by. They've got 14 locations throughout Wisconsin that can help you out with just about anything you need. I've been through them for years. Love them. Go see Austin. He'll treat you right. Switching over to the Packers. Since I'm in Wisconsin, everybody knows everything about Green Bay, right? Everybody knows everything. You never lose. You're always in the hunt for the championship. You have back-to-back Hall of Fame quarterbacks, and there have only been a couple other times when that's even been done, right? You have Joe Montana over to Steve Young there, hand in the Ferrari, and then you had the Packers. You got Favre handing the keys over to Rodgers. Yeah, it was a little rocky at first, 6-10, Rodgers' first year. But after that, man, he has only had 2 losing seasons since the Packers' initial season with Rodgers. So that first one where they started him in 2008, they went 6-10, his first year. And then they have, like I said, those 2 losing seasons, and they've actually been recent. So Packer fans have been through some rough stuff lately, but it doesn't hurt my feelings, once again, being a Minnesota fan. So in 2017, they popped to 7-9, and then 2018, they did a 6-9-1, which that dreaded 0-1 at the end there. Get rid of the ties. Overtime rules need to be changed. Everybody needs to touch a ball. There's no reason you should have a tie at all. This tying stuff, especially nowadays, doesn't need to be going on. It's 2020, people. Let's get rid of the tie. This isn't soccer. One thing that Green Bay has going for it is continuity at the coaching position, going back to the previously mentioned Belichick as well as Harbaugh. They've been there a while. They have that same established culture, and for the most part, that is the rock in those seas that you need, with the exception being the Bengals, where you had a guy who was there for 14 seasons, I believe, with 4 or 5 playoff appearances, and the rest just kind of a miserable football existence. Since 2000, Green Bay has had 14 playoff appearances, 15 winning seasons, and a Super Bowl victory, as we all know, in 2010, which was actually a very good game. My brother's a very, very big Packers fan. I actually got him the box set of the games, whatever, at the end of the season as a Blu-ray. And we actually sat at Christmas and we watched those. It was awesome just being able to be part of that. The whole town, I live in the Fox Valley, the whole area was just elated. And it was a good environment. It's always great to have that as part of your fan base where you can prove, hey, look, we're going all in. We're going to win this. We're going to get there. Another thing that they have, like I said, is that coaching continuity. 4 coaches since 2000. That's a big deal. And you have, once again, that same message where you don't have all these different guys coming in. Okay, we're going to do this. We're going to install this philosophy. We're going to change this. I don't like to pass that much. And all of a sudden, you're the Lions, where every 2 years you have a new coach, and you're like, I'm not even going to get behind this guy because I know he's not going to be here for much longer. Maybe not even past my next or this current contract that I might have. So just going to go in, get my paycheck, get out. I don't think Green Bay has that problem. They have Lambeau Field, which, if you haven't been there, is one of the coolest venues out there. It's original with some additions, obviously. It's super, super, super cool. There's not a bad seat in that stadium. You can be up way in the top, and you're going to go ahead and have a great experience, and you're going to be able to see everything just fine. I don't know who designed it, how they designed it. I am no engineer, but it is very, very cool. It's an awesome stadium. I've been there several times. I think the most recent one, Green Bay got shut out by the Vikings, 16-0. It was awesome. 4 minutes left in the game. There's only us purples in the stands. We were doing the skull chant, which is stupid. Let's be real. That's really dumb. Excuse me. And it was so cold. 2 of my beers froze. Didn't even get to drink them. They froze in my hands before I could finish them. It was pretty rough. And my guy Austin from Computer Corner can vouch for that story. He was with me. Alrighty, moving forward. 1 Super Bowl victory. Huge, funny video if you look up on YouTube here. Texas natives trying to pronounce Wisconsin street names. Super funny. I'll try and put that link below here. 4 conference title games reached that they exited at. 5 divisional exits and then 3 wild card exits in those 14 playoff appearances. Obviously touching that Super Bowl win as well. Just getting to the conference championship is a big deal. And going back to New England, I mean, what did they do it for they were like at the conference game for 16 out of Tom Brady's 20 seasons. Like every year you're 1 game away from the Super Bowl. And that's all these New England fans know. And it sounds like I'm a Patriots fan over a Minnesota fan because that's all I've talked about these 2 episodes, but I promise. Big Tom Brady fan. We'll get to there when we go NFC South. Packers versus Lions all time. Packers are leading the series 102-72 with 7 ties. That's impressive that they've met that many times, and that's impressive that the Packers have that big of a lead over it. But not as impressive when you look at the play of the Lions over. If we're only going back to 2000, it's such a difference in talent, in commitment to the team, and the commitment from the coaches to the players. You look at, if we're touching on Hall of Fame players, just in these last little bit here, and since I've been alive, Packers have 2 Pro Hall of Fame players in Reggie White, who was the first free agent signing ever, which we all know, since we're all huge football fans here. And then Brett Favre, obviously, was a first ballot unanimous kind of selection there. I don't see anybody from the Lions within this amount of time. Maybe Barry Sanders once again. But are you going to have a guy like Kelvin Johnson go in, or is he going to get held out because he held out? Hopefully it doesn't question his work ethic, because all I've ever heard and read is that he was this monster in the gym. He obviously put up all the time. But he left, and that might hurt his case in whenever he's up in the running there. I do think Matt Stafford has the opportunity and the ability to get to the Pro Football Hall of Fame because of his durability. And it's 2020, people. This is a numbers-driven league. He is a guy that's been putting up in his career, like I had touched on, 41,000 yards since 2009. To compare and contrast that, let's look at Rodgers here. Somebody hum some music for me. All right, Rodgers has 46,000. So he's only a year ahead of Matt Stafford, and he only has basically, he's only a year ahead of him and only has 1 year's worth of yards. Ugh, dumb. But they're neck and neck, man. If we're talking about yards specifically, he's right up there. And just passing touchdown, 256, something like that. Rodgers does have 100 more. So, I mean, if someone's going in between the two of them, obviously everyone loves Aaron Rodgers and loves what he brings to the team. He's been holding himself back, I think. If you're watching the game, if you're watching these people, Rodgers, when he came out, he's like Patrick Mahomes is now. He's tossing this, he's throwing backwards, he's falling down and flipping it. And every time you're watching him throw, you're like, oh my God, did you see that? Just like you're doing with Mahomes now. But lately you've been seeing a lot of Rodgers back foot toss, kind of leaning away, really bad form, throwing it into the dust before it gets to the guys. And say what you want about the rules now, but the rules are in a position where the quarterback, if you look at him wrong, you're going to get a penalty. And it looks like he's still trying to hold himself out. And I think a lot of that comes from some of the bigger hits he's taken. He's kind of had a collarbone issue against the Bears, I believe it was, and then against Minnesota where he broke his collarbones. And I think maybe that's kind of changed the way that he approaches the game and how he's able to, how he's able to personally do his job. If we're able to get one or two more vintage years of vintage Rodgers, I think Green Bay will be in good shape. But I think with the trend that it's going, unfortunately, it's not a drop-off like Peyton Manning, right? When he reached that age, his arm was just, he was Tim Tebow in it down the road. If you can get one more year of vintage Rodgers that can, I mean, he can prove his worth to the team, but I think that's what they're going to get. Maybe 1 year, maybe two. It's hard to have a good team when you have one guy getting 30% or 25% of your salary cap. And when his contract was announced, I found that so hard to believe with how much money they were giving him, because not only have they not done anything since 2010, I mean, championship-wise, let's see. He's got the whole team's money on lockdown, and then he doesn't have the people to throw to, doesn't have the people blocking for him. However, they do seem to prioritize the offensive line pass blocking individuals as opposed to anything else. They've got some great guys. They've got Lindsley up there, and I think they actually just lost two guys, which is kind of disappointing. But he has the pocketbook. He's got the purse in his hands. And that's why all these teams are shifting towards these younger guys, where you have a 5-year window, as they say, where if you have an absolute stud monster in Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson, who's one of those great up-and-coming guys, if you have that guy, that's the only time you're going to win a Super Bowl. Russell Wilson, they went back-to-back because he didn't have this bloated monster contract. And it seems to be, if you're watching the game, you have these guys get these monster deals, and all of a sudden the next year it's like straight down because they don't have anyone else to spend the money on. I mean, they have no money to put anywhere else. The Packers have one wideout, and they have all these other no-name guys that it's like a G League team for the Bucks. It's like, okay, well, technically you're on the team, but are you really contributing in a way that championship caliber teams want you to contribute? So maybe adjusting and upping the mental on those is a big deal too. And I don't know that that's the case in Detroit. I don't think Stafford has this giant bloated contract. I know he's one of the better paid QBs out there. First $100 million. Nope, Jay Cutler was the first $100 million QB, but definitely not worth it. That is my take between these two guys. I'm sure I'll think of something as soon as I stop recording here, so feel free to comment down below. I'd love to see what you guys have to say, and I do appreciate everybody watching and spending the time with me on here. I hope you guys are having a great day. Happy Friday night. Stay safe out there.